Hello everyone. Welcome to those who haven't been here before, and welcome back to those who have watched before. Thanks for coming again. My name is Leah Langley, and we are here to discuss the books I read in the month of September 2024. I read 3 books in total this month, so kind of a shorter month for reading. And let's just dive right in. So the very first book I read in September 2024 is a continuation of, let me say, it's called Summer on Sag Harbor by Sunny Austin. I read the first book in this Summer Beach series, Summer on the Bluffs, in August. If you missed that video, you can go back and watch my last book's review to see what I said about that one. But this is the second one in this Summer Beach read. There's a third one that's out as well that just came out a couple months ago that I will be picking up at some point, maybe by the end of this year, to try to read as well. Let me give a little synopsis. In a hidden enclave in Sag Harbor, affectionately known as SAND, Sag Harbor Hills, Azores, and Nineveh, there's a close-knit community of African-American elites who escape the city and enjoy a beautiful warm weather and beaches at their vacation homes. Very few know about the part of the Hamptons on Long Island, and the residents like it that way. Against the odds, Olivia Jones, who we met in the first book, has blazed her own enviable career path, and built her name in the finance world. But hidden behind the veneer of her success, there's a gaping hole. Mourning both the loss and the betrayal of Omar, a surrogate father to her, and her 2 god sisters, Olivia is driven to find out more about her biological father, a police officer who was killed when she was a little girl, and solve the mystery of what happened to her mother. Feeling unearthed from her life in New York City, Olivia buys and redecorates a home in Sag Harbor and begins forging a new community out in Sands. Friendship blossoms with Addie, a wealthy part-time sommelier, Kara, ambitious art curator, and Whitney, the wife of ex-baseball player and current president of the Sag Harbor Home Owners Association. She also takes a kind older gentleman named Mr. Winningham, but soon discovers he is not without his own troubles. As the summer stretches on, each relationship teaches her more about who she really is, though not without cost. Olivia's search for her authentic identity in the secretive history of family of origin will lead her to redefine the meaning of joy, love, friendship, society, culture, and family, and restore her faith in herself, her relationships, her blackness, and her chosen path. So that was a mouthful there. But like I said, Olivia Jones is someone we met in the first book. So it was kind of a continuation of her story, or like a different, we were seeing her in a different way here, living in this Hamptons community. Let me kind of get my little thoughts on it. I honestly don't have too much to say, but let me just say what I wrote in my review. Summer on Sag Harbor is the second book of the Summer Beach series. I struggled to keep up with everything in the first book, mainly because I quickly determined that my interest in the book was waning. With Summer on Sag Harbor, however, the book had more of my attention for much longer, as I'd hoped when I began reading it. I said that after the end of my last book review of the first book, I said I hope I have more interest in the second one, and I did, so that was good at least. All that being said, I don't have much comment on it. The book wasn't bad, it wasn't great, it was just one of those flat, middle-of-the-road reactions for me. I'd say pick it up if the synopsis speaks to you. And that's really, when I wrote my little review, I don't really have a lot more to say about this. And I was thinking about this. I was speaking with some people yesterday we were talking about movies and about how either I really like something, I really don't like something, or I'm kind of like so about it. And this was kind of the similar for how I am with books sometimes. And that's really how I felt. I feel like if that synopsis I just read to you, if that speaks to you, if that's like, something I might want to look into, it'd be kind of interesting to hear about the woman living in the Hamptons and kind of like going through certain things. I feel like this is a book for you. It's obviously a fiction book. It's a romance book. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. Just I read it. Like I said, I will be reading the third one when it comes to me at some point. So yeah, that's all I gotta say on Summer on Sag Harbor. The second book of September 2024 is a book called Sandy Hook, An American Tragedy and the Battle for Truth by Elizabeth Williamson. Before I even talk about this book, I picked this book up because, I'm trying to figure out how much to say, but I was in the library, and in 2014, I read these 2 books that I actually have here as well, Columbine and Parkland, both by Dave Cullen. I read them in 2019, and every month, for like a coffee table thing, we pick books to put on the coffee table and like basically on a way to recommend to people. So I was going to the library to pick up these 2 books. I wanted to put them on my coffee table. In particular, I chose these books because we just had another recent school shooting in Alabama. How sad is that? I don't even remember which state it is. In Alabama, I believe it was. I said, I want to put these on the coffee table to kind of remind people that we're back to school and we're back to having school shootings again, it seems, because the United States doesn't want to really do a lot to get rid of things. Anyways, let me just keep going with what I'm talking about. So I was going to the library to pick up these books, but then when I was grabbing them, I saw this book. Like, actually was kind of like displayed there as well. I said, I hadn't heard of this book. Let me pick it up and I'll read this one as well. Like I said, the Dave Cullen books I read were excellent. I recommend you read those if you'd like. And let me just read the synopsis first, then I'll kind of I'll read some of my review. My review is quite long. And as I say always, if you want to see actually my full reviews, if I don't actually read through them all, you can look at my Goodreads. It's linked below, but let me read the synopsis. Based on hundreds of hours of research, interviews, and access to exclusive sources and materials, Sandy Hook is Elizabeth Williamson's landmark investigation of the aftermath of a school shooting. The work of Sandy Hook parents who fought to defend themselves and the truth of their children's fate against the frenzied distortions of online deniers and conspiracy theorists. On December 14th, 2012, a gunman killed 20 first graders and 6 educators at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. 10 years later, Sandy Hook has become a foundational story of how false conspiracy narratives and malicious misinformation have gained traction in society. One of the nation's most devastating mass shootings, Sandy Hook was used to create destructive and painful myths driven by ideology or profit, or for no sound reason at all. Some people insisted it never occurred or was staged by the federal government as a pretext for seizing Americans' firearms. They tormented the victims' relatives online, accosted them on the street, and at memorial events, accusing them of faking their loved ones' murders. Some family members have been stalked and forced into hiding. A gun was fired into the house of one parent. Present at the creation of this terrible crusade was Alex Jones' InfoWars, a far-right outlet that aired noxious Sandy Hook theories to millions and raised money for the conspiracy theorists' quest to prove the shooting didn't happen, enabled by Facebook, YouTube, and other social media companies' failure to curb harmful content. The conspiracists' questions grew into suspicion grew into demands for more proof, and unanswered demands turned into rage. The pattern of denial and attack would come to characterize some Americans' response to almost every major event, from mass shootings to the coronavirus pandemic to the 2020 presidential election, in which President Trump's false claims of a rigged result prompted the January 6, 2021 assault on the bastion of democracy, the U.S. Capitol. The Sandy Hook families, led by the father of the youngest victim, refused to accept this. Sandy Hook is the story of their battle to preserve their loved ones' legacies, even in the face of threats of their own lives, through exhaustive reporting, narrative storytelling, and intimate portraits. Sandy Hook is a definitive book on one of the most shocking cultural ruptures of the internet era. That synopsis really tells you a lot of what you need to know about what is in this book. Like I said, when I picked it up, I didn't necessarily know what it was going to be about. Obviously, I knew it was going to be about, but I didn't necessarily know what it was going to kind of lead into. I guess the subtext should give me a little bit of heads up. Again, American tragedy in the battle for truth. Let me just kind of read what I wrote when I wrote this review here, which I did this morning, but let me just read. I did not know what to expect from this book, as I just said. I picked up in the library, kind of explaining what I was picking up for. I've said it before, that the Sandy Hook massacre, for me and many people my age, was the first school shooting we experienced from afar. I was 16 years old when it happened in 2012. We knew about Columbine, Virginia Tech, etc., but we weren't alive or maybe not conscious then, so learning about it was always a way of looking back, whereas Sandy Hook was one where we were of age. We were able to watch the news and see what was happening. I very much remember getting the alerts of a school shooting happening while I was at school myself, talking about it at school, and going home that night and watching the news, taking everything in, being so heartbroken by everything. And any kind of shooting or massacre is heartbreaking, but I think we can all agree when children are involved, it breaks your heart even more. I also think because of my age, or at the time possibly because of the protection from my parents, I had no idea how many people were almost immediately calling it a hoax. I hadn't even thought about that really being something people would be saying, let alone doing what they did, as Williams outlines in the book. I really only learned of this being as big as it was, and perhaps still is, when Alex Jones was charged recently for spreading lies and ultimately has been ordered to pay almost $1.5 billion to Sandy Hook families. So again, and also I should say, in the book they talk about some of the charges that went up against Alex Jones and other people as well. Back to what I'm saying now. So again, not knowing what this book was exactly going to be, Williamson clearly states in the very first sentence of the author's note, quote here, The book documents a battle by victims' families against deluded people and profiteers who denied the December 14th, 2012 shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, that killed 20 first graders and 6 educators. Williamson details how the events unfolded in this battle for truth and really walks you through all the lies people have believed from various sources, especially Alex Jones. She speaks with family members affected by the Sandy Hook massacre and how the harassment has affected them. She also speaks to people who absolutely believe these lies and are being taken advantage of by someone who really is only concerned with personal profit. It is fascinating to read this, but also very sad. I cannot fathom people doing and believing the things that stood in this book. Targeting families with harassment on the street, online, constantly speaking their names on your programs, and closely examining their interviews or statements that are just absolutely ludicrous. And it's seemingly still happening today, even though Alex Jones and others have been found guilty of their lies or have backtracked and said that they lied. Williamson details a moment in the book where one of the parents of a slain child ends up being the first to make a public statement to the media, which they didn't know they were the first. And I think it was the day after the shooting. I looked at the video on YouTube, and all the top comments, some from only a year ago, are calling this heartbroken father an actor, etc. From reading the book, we know that as soon as the day after, it's not on the same day, people were already calling the shooting fake, either because they were worried the government would take away the Second Amendment rights, didn't want to sit with the actual truth, were being taken advantage of by someone concerned for profit, or who knows what else. Still, it baffles me that anyone could do or say these things. Williamson was not afraid to call these people deluded, as she does in her author's note each time. And each time she bats down one of the lies they cling to. Again, as someone who didn't know any of the specific lies people held on to or really know how deep and pervasive some of these lies were, this book was quite the look and exploration into these things. I'm happy that several people are being taken to court over these lies. While that will not bring people's families back, I hope that their lives can be more powerful by at least taking down these big disinformation spreaders. And I also want to remark, and I probably will add this to my review on Goodreads as well, from reading the synopsis, I failed to mention in my review about how she talked about how this kind of started like a ripple effect. And I was kind of like, that's true, because pretty much every time we have, like she talked about other school shootings we've had since Sandy Hook, or other, like again, the coronavirus pandemic, the presidential election from 2020, there's always this big rise in conspiracy theorists and or people like having this big, seems like microphone sometimes to question these things, and sometimes it's absolutely ludicrous, and we'll hold on to it for forever and ever. And I can see how that kind of niche of people would have been started here. I'm sure it was happening before, but like I think with the rise of social media and stuff like that, it's so much easier to kind of have a megaphone and to basically share some of these things. So it really was just one of those books that really just walked you through everything that was happening there, happening in this time. Like I said, still kind of happening. Like I said, I looked at that YouTube video and I was shocked to even see like some months or only a year ago, people were commenting things trying to say this father was a liar. It was just like, just out of this world. I think it's an excellent book. I think Elizabeth Williamson did a great job in really investigating, speaking to people from both sides of it, people whose lives were families who lost someone in the tragedy, also people who I see as kind of taken advantage of. Some people are not. Some people are just sticking to their delusions. But overall, excellent book. It's a tough book to read, obviously, because of what's happening, what happened there. But I think it's important to kind of point out some of the crazies, honestly. So, yeah. And now my last book for September 2024 is a book called Scarcity, Why Having Too Little Means So Much. I might mess up these names, but it's by Sendil Mullatanhatin and Eldar Safir. Let me read the synopsis first, then I'll talk a little bit more about it. A surprising and intriguing examination of how scarcity and our flawed responses to it shapes our lives, our society, and our culture. Why do successful people get things done at the last minute? Why does poverty persist? Why do organizations get stuck firefighting? Why do the lonely find it hard to make friends? These questions seem unconnected, yet Sendil and Eldar show that they are all examples of mindset produced by scarcity. Drawing on cutting-edge research from behavioral science and economics, Sendil and Eldar show that scarcity creates a similar psychology for everyone struggling to manage with less than they need. Busy people fail to manage their time efficiently for the same reasons that the poor and those maxed out on credit cards fail to manage their money. The dynamics of scarcity reveal why dieters find it hard to resist temptation, why students and busy executives mismanage their time, and why sugarcane farmers are smarter after harvest than before. Once we start thinking in terms of scarcity and the strategies it imposes, the problems of modern life become into sharper focus. The authors discuss how scarcity affects our daily lives, recounting anecdotes of their own failures and making surprising connections that bring the research alive. The book provides a new way of understanding why the poor stay poor and why the busy stay busy. And it reveals not only how scarcity leads us astray, but also how individuals and organizations can better manage scarcity for greater satisfaction and success. So I came upon this book because earlier this year, I think at least March, maybe March and April, I read 2 books by Matthew Desmond, Poverty by America and Evicted. This one won the Pulitzer. And I was listening, we recently read these in my book club, so I was kind of reviewing these books, and also I was listening to more Matthew Desmond interviews, and he mentioned this book, Scarcity, and as many others, as I've been taking down a bunch of the books he's recommended. He mentioned those in one of the interviews I heard him give, and I said, okay, let me read this book. So I picked it up and read it, and the authors precisely detail the book subtitle, Why Having Too Little Means So Much. So let me just kind of say what I said. This is a quote from the book. Scarcity is not just a physical constraint, it's also a mindset. When scarcity captures our attention, it changes how we think, whether it's at a level of milliseconds, hours, or days and weeks. By staying top of mind, it affects what we notice, how we weigh our choices, how we deliberate, and ultimately what we decide and how we behave. And from the description, I like the kind of questions posed of why do successful people get things done at the last minute? Why does poverty persist? Why do organizations get stuck firefighting? Why do the lonely find it hard to make friends? These questions seem unconnected, yet the authors show that they are all examples of mindset produced by scarcity. They look at scarcity from various angles: time scarcity, money scarcity, all types of different ways of scarcity. They look into it. And like I said, they go over kind of this newest research. So they look at all these different angles so you can truly grasp the best you can without living through it necessarily, in terms of the poverty side. Why it's all so consuming and why it means so much. It really is a great book to read if you have questions, as detailed in the description, and I just quoted above. And if you have any more questions in general about poverty, like I said, it's not necessarily just about poverty in this book, but I feel like a lot of the things in here speak to kind of the poverty struggle. I would say, especially after again kind of reflecting a lot of Matthew Desmond's work. So I feel like it does a good job of kind of putting some things into context for you and kind of seeing why having so little means so much. And that's really, I think, a perfect subtitle because they break down so many different ways of why it means so much. I keep saying the same thing, but it honestly is a really great book. It's not very long of a book. I forget how long it was exactly, but I think it's one of those. Well, it's 300 pages. It's not horrible. But I think it's one of those books that, like I said, if you have questions about those that were posed before, if you want to learn more about kind of poverty and maybe why is it persisting, why do maybe people make certain choices that they make, people that are in poverty, I think a book like this is a great one to pick up and kind of get you kind of going down the road, I would say. So that is it for September 2024. Those are the 3 books I read. All pretty good books. I'm looking forward to October. We're in October right now, and I am working on a book currently, and that's going well. It's just behind me there. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. As I always say, please, 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 always give me recommendations. I know I read a lot. I think for September, we've got up to book 41, I think, for the year. So some people, it's lots of people, it's not very much. So I'm kind of just, I guess, I don't know. But I'm always taking recommendations. I always like to hear what you guys are thinking. As always, you can find my Goodreads linked below if you'd like to see what books I read in the past, or if you want to look at my old YouTube videos, or if you want to just kind of see my reviews, things like that. Feel free to go check that out over there. I will see you guys in my next video. Who knows when that will be? Hopefully sometime soon. Depends what we got going on. Yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.